Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem early Wednesday morning, injuring dozens of Palestinians.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has slammed his criminal charges against him as court interference. He faces 34 counts of fraud in a New York court.
The United States has announced a new military aid package to Ukraine worth 2.3 billion euros. Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem's Old City early Wednesday, reportedly injuring dozens of worshippers. Rockets were then fired from Gaza into southern Israel, prompting an Israeli airstrike on the Palestinian territory. Israeli police say they stormed the mosque after young people brought fireworks, sticks, and stones into the building, then barricaded themselves inside. One officer was reportedly injured and dozens were arrested. This comes as Muslims mark the holy month of Ramadan and Jews begin to prepare for Passover. Outside, police used stun guns and rubber bullets against a crowd of people. In Gaza, Israeli forces reportedly attacked 2 weapons manufacturing centers. Similar events from 2 years ago erupted into an 11-day war between Israel and Hamas.
Donald Trump has slammed his charges of 34 counts of fraud in a New York court. Calling it election interference and a witch hunt, he returned to his Florida home to give a primetime TV address. Many expected a blistering response, but instead it was a campaign speech. He says his lawyers believe there is no case against him.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. So much more. Our elections were like those of a third world country. And now this massive election interference at a scale never seen before in our country.
Without a doubt, Trump's earlier court appearance was a moment of history, marking the first time a former U.S. president has been charged with a crime. Those charges, to which he has pleaded not guilty, involve falsifying business records in which prosecutors allege was a conspiracy to influence the 2016 presidential election by silencing claims of extramarital affairs.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes.
While Republicans have largely rallied around Trump, Democrats have been notably quiet. The former president is running for a second term in the White House, but he's facing a series of separate criminal investigations that could result in further charges between now and Election Day.
The former president was stone-faced and silent as he entered and exited the Manhattan courtroom here. His plea was not guilty, facing the judge who warned him to refrain from rhetoric that could inflame or cause civil unrest. A few hours later, Donald Trump was back in the ballroom of his private club in Florida, railing against the criminal case and painting it again as a political persecution. Prosecutors say Trump conspired to illegally influence the 2016 election, doing so through a series of payments to women who alleged affairs with him. Before the arraignment, he narrated his feelings in real time, describing the experience as surreal. Outside the court building, protesters made their voices heard, but there were no disturbances. Philip Crowther, Euronews, New York.
The U.S. has unveiled details of a new military aid package to Ukraine, worth 2.3 billion euros. It includes ammunition for Patriot air defense systems, as well as anti-tank missiles. This, as politicians as well as representatives from the business world and charitable organizations arrive in Kyiv to talk about post-war development. Ukraine's president met the delegates, led by former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. As Finland is welcomed into NATO, becoming the military alliance's 31st member, its chief also restated the group's commitment to Ukraine.
Our meeting today underscored NATO's enduring commitment to Ukraine. Allies are ramping up the production of weapons and ammunition and delivering on their pledges of training and new heavy weaponry. A strong, independent Ukraine is vital for the stability of the Euro-Atlantic area, and we look forward to meeting President Zelensky at our Vilnius summit in July.
Russia's defense minister told military commanders in Moscow the accession of Finland into the military alliance increased the risk of wider conflict. He also confirmed Russia had provided ally country Belarus with missiles that can carry conventional or nuclear warheads.
The UK's decision to send shells made with depleted uranium to Ukraine has raised a few eyebrows. The use of similar munitions during the 1999 NATO bombing of Yugoslavia is the object of several studies on health risks posed by the toxic material. Mr. Tartaglia knows a lot about it. The Italian lawyer has been defending military officials who have been suffering the consequences of the exposure to depleted uranium weapons for the past 20 years. He has set an unprecedented record, winning over 300 legal cases, proving the link between the use of depleted uranium and a number of diseases.
È necessario far riflettere chi dice queste cose su quelli che sono i rischi, le conseguenze. Ci sono cose che si possono fare in guerra e cose che non si possono fare in guerra. L'utilizzo di questi armamenti è una di quelle cose che non si può fare con la guerra. Così come in Italia si è formato il diritto militare ormai a 360 gradi, è necessario che si formi anche a livello europeo.
In the absence of firm regulations and with Italy's defense ministry denying any responsibility, gathering enough evidence to win compensation is not an easy task.
Queste esposizioni sono un po' più aggressive, però comunque hanno un tempo piuttosto lungo. Ahimè, purtroppo è una valanga che si sta staccando, ancora non si è staccata.
This type of munitions have also been used in other battlefields such as Iraq and Afghanistan. The EU Parliament has repeatedly passed resolutions calling for a ban on depleted uranium weapons, but a few states are against such calls. According to Tartaglia, if depleted uranium was to be used in Ukraine, it would cause irreversible effects.
Si potrebbe assistere a delle malattie tra i militari sia di uno schieramento sia dell'altro, quindi sia dei militari russi che ucraini, ma soprattutto a un inquinamento bellico quasi irreversibile dell'ambiente e quindi malattie che colpiscono i civili.
Following Italy's example, a few politicians are determined to renew calls for a full ban, asking the EU to bring its attention back to the issue. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Europe is rearming. France has become the latest country to unveil a planned increase in its military budget. The government announced on Tuesday that over the next 7 years it will devote 413 billion to defence. The annual budget will more than double, rising from 32 billion in 2017 to 69 billion in 2030. Nuclear deterrence will be one of the key aspects of this budget, with the construction of a new generation nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. President Emmanuel Macron's government also wants to invest in cyber, space and submarine defense.
De toute façon, c'est l'agression russe en Ukraine qui provoque un besoin de sécurité de la plupart des partenaires de l'Europe continentale. Bon, la neutralité, ça doit aussi faire réfléchir et les commentateurs et les autorités russes pour que des pays qui ont toujours choisi une prudente neutralité depuis tant de décennies décident de rompre avec cette neutralité, c'est bel et bien qu'il y a une peur.
Like France, the rest of Europe is in the midst of an arms race. Poland announced at the beginning of this year that it will devote 4% of its GDP to defense. This unprecedented expenditure will include massive purchases of fighter planes and tanks from the United States and South Korea. But undoubtedly, the great military revolution is that of Germany, which, in the heat of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, announced a $100 billion increase to its 2022 military budget in order to modernize its armed forces. Dramatic increases in their defense spending have also been announced by the Baltic countries, Italy, the United Kingdom and Sweden, which is waiting to join NATO after decades of neutrality. And the trend is not only European but worldwide, with countries including Australia, South Korea and Japan rearming at a rapid pace, in a climate of military tension and nervousness reminiscent of the Cold War.
Police in Sweden have arrested 5 people suspected of conspiracy to commit terrorist offences. Raids were carried out in 3 towns in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Counter-terrorism officials say those arrested have international links to violent Islamic extremism, and security services intervened early, even though they didn't think a terrorist attack was imminent. In January, a far-right activist burned a copy of the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Stockholm, sparking protests across the Muslim world. After the incident, Turkey backtracked on its rapprochement with Stockholm and maintained its veto on Sweden's bid for NATO membership. Security services noted that international reactions to the events outside the embassy in January have been extensive, and said the assessment is that the security situation has deteriorated.